everyone, my name is REDRUP, this is the It's Not a Phase podcast, and welcome to the first episode of 2023. This time around I'm joined by Polar vocalist Woody to talk all about the band's soon-to-be released 5th album, Everywhere, Everything. We talk all about how that came together, some lineup changes that have happened recently, how he's developed as a vocalist, future plans and loads more. Now, if you enjoyed this or any other episode of the podcast and you want to show your support, there's a few ways that you can do that. Number 1, leave a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. It takes just a few seconds and it really does help. Number 2, share this on your social media, whether that be Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or number 3, if you want to go the extra mile, you can pay a little bit each month to join the Patreon, and in return you'll get access to episodes early along with some other perks, or you can pick up some merch from the store. All the links to that and the podcast socials where you can follow us can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now with all that out of the way, let's jump right into this week's episode of It's Not a Phase. What's up everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of It's Not a Phase, where I'm joined by Adam Woodford, aka Woody of Polar. How are you doing, man?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, really good.
You've got your 5th album coming out, Everywhere, Everything, on January 13th. How are you feeling about putting this out into the world?
Super excited. It's been a long time coming because the album took so long to make. Obviously, we went in with a plan to make an album in 6 months. The album took 2 years. And in that 2-year period of everyone that was involved and doing particular things, we've had the album. So we've worked with demos all the way to pre-production to the point of actually making the record. So I felt for a long time quite selfish because we had this record, we played it to like close friends and family, and everyone's like, this is really cool, this is different, like you've really done something different. But your biggest critics hadn't got it yet. So yeah. I'm looking forward to hitting those people because I think it's just going to be good to be able to connect with people via it and see what people actually make of it. You put your blood, sweat and tears into it, your hard work, and it's the best reward in the world, the best feeling in the world is to see someone really connect with it and write really kind messages about it. So I'm hoping we get a lot of those.
So like you say, you've been working on it for, around 2 years. When did, like you say, you had the demos and pre-production and stuff. When did the actual, the recording of the final product start? Because was it Ramesh you went with for producing?
Yeah. So we worked alongside Ramesh. We actually self-produced a little bit on this one and co-engineered with Ramesh. So Noah C, our drummer, he engineered the backing vocals, bass and guitar, and then they were sent to Ramesh. Now, a lot of the way we had to work things is because of the way the lockdowns were working. We were finding ways that we could basically get the record done. It was quite difficult to go see Ramesh at the time because he was in Wales. And I don't know if every guy or girl remembers, but we weren't allowed to go to Wales for a long time. It was severance because of the pandemic. So we just had to find ways that we could make it work and that we were going to be able to do everything that with the right people in the right places. So yeah, Noah did a fantastic job, and he really he put his head down and really worked super hard, put a lot of hours into it. So that kind of started maybe like early 2021, late 2020, when we started really putting the guitars down. And then unfortunately there was a bit of a waiting game because, well, I should say, actually, we did the drums first in Wales, and then we got the pandemic and the lockdowns actually struck quite heavily after that. And then there was the guitars, and then we had to go back and do the vocals with Ramesh in Wales, and we just couldn't do it. It's so hard because I guess the vocals are such an important part of a record. Everyone wanted to be there for that particular part, and we just weren't allowed people in large numbers into studios. So there was a lot of and it was obviously not being able to get there and people feeling comfortable and safe, and during that time, I think that was the real main focus, is just making sure people felt comfortable and safe in the environments we were working in. And yeah, it was just very hard to make those chess pieces move sometimes, and it was no fault to anyone. It's because the pandemic was just basically dictating to us when we could do stuff and when we couldn't do stuff. So yeah, it literally was a space of about maybe a year and a half of actually tracking the record. And it's quite hard in those senses because we were just I think we're not physically burnt out, but mentally burnt out because we were going through this process. And when you do a record, like previous records in like the 4 records that Polar have done, we've gone to a studio, we've worked on that record for a period of time, whether it be a month, whether it be 2 weeks, and you're out of that window But in that 2 weeks, it captivates your every thought. With this, it was like we were having to sort of like pick it up in places and drop it off. So when you were re-picking up the album, you were having to find that energy again. You were like the enthusiasm, and we believed in the songs. We wrote 14 songs in total, and 10 made the album. And it was good because I guess we had so much faith that when we were going back to listen to the pre-production stuff and all the work we did prior to like actually tracking the record, the songs did something for us that we had never had in previous Polar records. I'm not saying that those records were wrong or there was bad thing. It was just there was a new fresh life in the songs. And I guess having two fresh heads with Gav Fane and Noah C joining, they brought their ideas, and they'd seen the band on an outskirt for a long time. So to bring them in, they'd seen what they would do to Polar. They had the opportunity to bring that in and bring their ideas on board. It breathed a new life into it. And I would say it's probably a bit of a saving grace, because that could have gone either way. Yeah. There could have been points where I couldn't be here now talking about it. Yeah, it was just a very hard time, and it's incredibly hard to be creative when everything that you want to be creative with has been severed. And then we had to learn to adapt to write music remotely. We had to use a lot of Zoom conversations, and so we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, which wasn't our fault. But I think we rolled with the punches, and we've come out the other side, and we learned lessons. Some of those things that happened during, it wasn't all rain clouds and thunderstorms. There were little pockets of light and things that we learned that we could do better in future writing and future recording. So it was a real learning curve, a real swerve, and a big learning curve as well. Like, this is, you're going to go right off on the beaten track for a long time, and hopefully you'll find the road again towards the end. So
well, you mentioned there was a few like lineup changes as well, because I know Tom left, didn't he? But you're still on good terms because he took like promo images for the album, didn't he? When did they kind of start? These kind of changes, is this because of like, during COVID, I think a lot of people kind of had a lot of introspection on what they want to do with their lives,
So Tom and Johnny left. We're now a 4-piece, and Tom, he had to started to aspire into film and photography during Polar, and he really, it was something that he found very close to his heart very quickly. And he was like, it's amazing to see. He just got very super creative with it. But then that became more of an interest than probably doing music. Maybe he was finding more victories and more goals in doing that than he was in actually playing music. And maybe that Polar had hit the glass ceiling. And that's totally understandable. Like, people are, what the pandemic has taught us is that, don't be scared to try new things. If something doesn't feel right, then don't force it. Do what makes you happy. And Johnny was very similar. Johnny he got to a point where I think he just wanted to do life, like the prospect of another album and another years worth of touring cycles, and like the stop starting, that just didn't, I don't think it sat well with him anymore. And he just wouldn't, we'd all been sort of being home for a very large amount of time, and I think people just started to get used to that. The everyday, like waking up in your own bed, a clean shower, you're not going to eat crisps for lunch, dinner, and breakfast. All of the dreamy things you get to do in being in a band. But I think the home comforts and the idea of life being different, that just did sink in, and we fully respect that. And back it. I think it's important, as I said, just people have got to do what makes them happy, and as long as they are happy in what avenues and what directions they're going in, then they've always got our full support. And if they're not happy, then we always will lend an ear and an arm to be there for them. We've experienced a lot of things together that groups of friends necessarily will never experience together. So they're held very true to all of our hearts.
But it's good that you're all still on good terms, and like you say, people get different things out of life and want to have different things in life, so it's totally natural and normal that they'd want to step away and do different things. That's happens even in non-band, like people who aren't in bands and stuff. So
you do, you want to, all I want for them is to them to be happy and achieve the best things that they can in those avenues they've got into, and that's all I wish from those. And it's, I guess it's probably quite strange for them, because they now, Tom took the photos, our first promos, as a 4-piece. Johnny, at some point, I'm sure, will probably come and watch us live, and it will be like probably watching an ex-girlfriend get off with a new guy. Like it's weird, but you're like, well, we don't really connect anymore. But as long as they're happy, that's the main thing.
How are you guys kind of adapting to being a 4-piece now, as opposed to, because you're a 5-piece for so long?
I'm selfishly going to say this because I'm the only one on here. I have all the space in the world now. This is great for me. Like, this is, for 11 years, 12 years, however long we've been going, I've been, sandwiched between a bassist, 2 guitarists. I've kind of been like narrowly put into the middle of a stage, and don't swing your mic too far because you're going to hit him, or don't go too far to this. And now I'm like, wow, look at all the space for activity.
All this room for activity.
Look at this. This is, we adapted very well. I think, I don't think we really thought about it too much. Polar have been through these changes and these movements for quite a few years, and we've had different lineups and people have come and gone. But I think the one thing that kind of left us in the mentality of it is the ability to be like, cool, okay, if we're going to do this, we do this like this now. We don't put a lot of it into thought and conversation, because I think that's where you get stuck, and that's where you can put mental blocks in. Would it work? Does it look weird? We just were like, let's just go and do it. And if it feels weird, then we address it, and then we maybe find a solution. But we haven't. We've all walked off and like, well, this is just, and it feels like the right thing to do. If we're going to condense the band to a 4-piece, let's just keep it to the people that made the record. But the window of opportunity and the door being open to a 5th member coming in, it's not shut. It's being looked at as if someone comes along and they're like, that is the right guy to be doing what we're doing. He fits the mold. He connects with us, or she. Then we bring them on board. But it's not going to be, I think what we have done in the past is we've gone like very hyperactive into mode of like trying to find that right, someone's gone, let's get this person in here, let's move that into here. Whereas this time we're like, well, we can do this as a 4-piece. We've got some very good friends in bands that are 4-pieces that sound enormous, like Strafe and the Path, Spirit Box, these are 4-piece bands. We were looking at them and going, they sound mega. There's no reason we couldn't sound mega. There's a little bit of trickery with the live show a bit more, but it feels good and it feels natural. And I think if it didn't feel good and it didn't feel natural, I think we would have acted upon it. But we seem to be very good at like addressing those situations when they do come. But nobody's turned around and been like, we need to get another guy in. We need to make this a 5-piece. We've kind of gone, this is cool. Let's just go with it. Let's just go with the good gut feeling with it, and if that changes, or if someone in the band thinks, maybe I won't. We don't want that. I would rather it be a 5-piece. Then every person's opinion is valid, and maybe we address it with that. But coming in with the record and going into 2023, I think it's a good strong move to just continue as the four of us. Yeah.
And you briefly mentioned Spirit Box then. I know you were on tour with them after the burial, Make Them Suffer, and then halfway through the tour just had to stop, didn't it? That must have been so...
Yeah, it was literally just before the English dates. Yeah, we were in Switzerland in 2020. That little band Spirit Box were opening.
And I look at them.
That won't be a case anymore. And that was their first time to Europe. And I remember them being so hyped about coming to the UK. I was like speaking to Mike and Courtney about it, and just being like, and obviously they were asking us because we were the only UK band on that tour, and it's like, what's the UK going to be like for us and stuff? And I'm like, they're going to go wild for you. And the proof's in the pudding from where they are now. Selling out the Roundhouse is a mega achievement. But that was the best and the most heartbreaking time in my life, because I honestly think that held as probably the best tour I've ever been on. And we've done some pretty mega tours, and just everyone clicked. We just had a lot of fun. And I don't know if that was because, we know Make Them Suffer very well. We've toured with them. We've done like Never Say Dies with them. Right. We've done festivals with them. Like some of those guys in that band are like our closest friends. So like to go on tour with them is just like going on a like mate's holiday, really.
Yeah.
You can play a 45-minute set every night. Didn't know Spirit Box that well at the time. Obviously, they've become very good friends with us, and it was the same with After the Burial. But everyone on that tour clicked. And like, not that we've been on tours where people don't click, but everyone on some tours, some people just don't want to be involved in the whole like mayhem of everyone going out, or the chaos of tour. Some people like to just play the show and then just go back and read and do things for themselves, or chat to their significant others, which is fine. But that tour had a bit of a party vibe to it. Maybe it's because it was at the time, it was like, it's the world ending. Do we just keep going? Like,
yeah, that's why we can,
yeah. Like, do we fight? And all the shows were great. And it was just like, that was for me the point when I was like, it felt like the penny had dropped with Polar. We were playing these shows and I was like, people are getting real into this now. Like, people know the words a lot. Like, the voices singing is getting bigger. The crowds are getting big. And I'm like, this is cool. Like, so maybe it finally makes sense to everyone. Yeah, maybe that. And it was like, bang, gone. Like, right, you're going home. Yeah.
It's like a little taster, basically.
Yeah. So we were in Switzerland. And I think at the time, Trump had just announced that he was going to shut the borders. And I think there was a bit of a real panic. And I remember all the people having to fly the international flights home were all kind of like, we need to go because we're not going to be able to get home. And then, yeah, in the space of 24 hours, I think I was back in my house, and it was like, space of 48 hours, I was pretty much back at work.
Isn't it? Like, just how quickly things...
which I do see as a blessing looking back now, because with that, it meant that I had some sort of like routine and normality, whereas a lot of my mates didn't really have that because they got furloughed or jobs changed or they left jobs. So I went back to work, and I actually worked in a situation where we could work. But we came back, and then we were like, let's do a record. Let's do a new album. We were actually in a point where Polar was going to stop touring. We were going to have a small blackout, and we were going to go away and basically fine tune ourselves, write a record, and come back out. But that obviously, I think, was supposed to be a 6-month window. And then it was like 2 years later. It's like
a little bit longer than planned.
Yeah, it just like... It reminded me of these videos you see of these people doing these long marathons, and they're just about to get to the finish line and their legs go. And they're like, every bit of energy is getting to that like finish line, but your body and your legs are just not getting you there. It kind of felt like that. It was like, we're there, we're just clawing our way to the end of this. But yeah, it's just to look back and think about that tour is just like some of the best times I ever had, I think, being on the road with then. And it was obviously being like counter hit by the fact that we didn't know that everything was literally just going to stop.
Well, it's so good that you were noticing like such a kind of increase on, like fans and people, getting into your music. And I think a lot of that is lent to your last album, Nova, where you've tried like all these kind of different things and new textures and sounds and stuff. And with this new record, kind of feels like you've kind of honed in on like those kind of aspects and kind of pushed them more to the forefront and utilize them better. I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, almost like it's almost like it taking a spotlight and exposing those particular areas that had a little bit of light on them before, and being like, cool, let's blow those things wide open. I guess the major thing for myself personally is my voice. The record, I've done things on that record that I've never done in Polar, really. I've touched on, but I've never gone like, cool, I'm going to do this fully. And that could have gone either way. Singing on a record we've been pitch singing, pitch screaming, using my false chord a bit more than less than my like fry scream to really kind of push the melody. And then it was like, we're going to do singing. We're going to do singing, and I don't know how people are going to react to it, but we're going to do it. And again, that could have gone really badly. It had a two-way street because it's not my natural way of doing things. So for a long time, my body and my voice and everything that I use to do it has been doing it in one particular way for so long that I had to break that mold. And I luckily I've got one of the best helpers and collaborators in the world in Ellie Price. So she was brought on the record quite early on, very early on. We discussed it. We were on a European tour before that, Spirit Box and After the Burial tour. And we went and did loads of places in Europe that we necessarily don't go to. Like we did Bulgaria, Romania, Greece. So like really like places that don't go on the major touring circuits. And that's when the album started getting discussed, really. We had a couple of riffs kicking around. Everyone was like, cool, like, you know, this could progress. And I think the major thing for us, we were like, vocals. This has got to be different to what you've done before. And I was like, let's just bring Ellie in early. We usually bring Ellie towards the end, and she comes and basically fine tunes and polishes things for us and makes them sound incredible. This time we were like, let's bring her in like more of a writer and a collaborator from the start. And that necessarily really helped me learn how to do things. And yeah, she was like, don't scream your head off, just learn the melodies. Like, yeah, feel the words, you know, take your foot off the pedal. And because I haven't heard myself do that, I've got very good at listening to myself scream on records, but I've never heard myself do that. And that sometimes that's the challenge in itself, is to being comfortable in that voice. And I had to learn how to become comfortable in those voices, so I could do them with conviction, and so that the songs could be portrayed in the right way. Yeah, it was that was a real challenge. But I feel that the record has the problem, I guess, as well, like sometimes when you learn how to do things like that, it's very easy to soak and drown a record in it because it's a new toy. It's something that's like, wow, this is a new toy. Let's put it everywhere. Like,
yeah.
I do feel that we've done it, and like in the right amounts, in the right places, that it doesn't feel like it's overkill. It has its moments and it has its standout sections, but it doesn't feel like we've just done a whole record of me singing. Like there is still an old, or the kind of original style of Polar in there.
I think you don't want to go like overboard on it as well, because you've also got to consider, it's fine doing it on record because you can do several different takes till you've got the right one. You also want to be able to pull it off live, right? So
exactly. We've only, like, a bit of a fact behind it is we've actually only played 3 of these songs live together. None of the records were written in a room together, not a single note. So we've played Dissolve Me live, we've played Everywhere Everything live, and in a practice room we've played one of the other songs in the album called Greatest Sin, which that is one more of the melodic ones that does kind of blend the two styles together. But yeah, it's a fun challenge. I enjoy it a bit more because it's like I said, it's the new toy. It's something I can play with. But learning to do all that stuff and trying to nail that stuff has made me a better aggressive singer, because I've learned how to do things. I'm like, that's a better way of carrying that. Apply that to the screaming. All right, cool. Well, that makes that better, and that makes that like come out, or makes that part of my voice like expose a bit more. And maybe the fry scream sounds better because I'm not going so heavy on the pedal with it, everything. So it really, by doing that, it exposed what I needed to do to become a better singer, which evidently helps the band like elevate to another level, because the better a vocal record is, or vocally a record is, the more people get on board with it, because that's the first thing everyone latches onto. You know,
that's what people relate to, because not everyone can play guitar or drums, but everyone has a voice, right? And they know.
Yeah,
it is.
And words are obviously, words and lyrics are, people are they're open interpretations. People can make of them what they will. So however you deliver a particular way in a song can really affect how someone feels about that song. But I want to do those songs justice live. So I've taken the present festive season we're in. I actually stopped drinking for 8 months, and in that 8 months as well, I stopped smoking. I won't lie, I'm not going to stand here with my polished halo. I have had a couple of cigarettes, and since then, not the easiest habit to lose, and God forbid that I ever go back to doing it. But like looking after myself health-wise, that was another way of being able to fine-tune the body into being able to do more vocally. And the more my health improved, or the more I was putting into my health, I was like, everything's a bit easier. I won't lie, and I think anyone who knows the band, we've definitely had our fair share of parties and drinking sessions, and maybe the pandemic's taught me, like, maybe don't do that as much, and you're going to be a better performer. And it is always about the show, and we just want to make the show better. So I've been trying to do things on a personal, like bettering myself personally, in order to better the band.
I think the more you can do vocally as well kind of opens up so many more doors for what can happen with the instruments and what you can actually create and, you know, how you construct songs and stuff. And if you look back at, you know, your very first EP, this Polar Noise, to this new album, you can tell the difference as the records go on, just how much you've developed as a vocalist.
Yes, yeah. We always try and make every record different. I think that's the same for every band. Yeah, no one wants to replicate the same record, but you can tell over the years, and some of this is down to singing lessons. I'm not ashamed to say it. I've had singing lessons. I want to be a better singer, and I also just don't want to hurt myself too much. And in the aggressive styles of vocals that are being used, you can hurt yourself and you not be realised. So I think knowledge has been power with it, and I like the fact that if I'd learned how to do this like by the second record, I think if the veil had been taken off early, I think it would have been quite hard to see where the records were going to go. But I quite like the fact the journey has gone. Yeah, if you start like this Polar Noise and you listen to Iron Lungs, you know, they're almost on the verge of like Knock Loose style abrasive screaming. And then you listen to Shadow by Vultures and it's like, but this is a bit more melodic. And that was a conscious decision to do it. And then it's like from Shadow by Vultures into No Cure, it's like, right, the melody's even getting bigger. I'm learning more about what I can do and what I can give to the band. And then, you know, by Nova came, it was like, cool, like, let's make these choruses huge. And then by this record, it's like, let's try singing. Let's put some singing on this. Let's really break the mold. Let's give, you know, what I do like about it is like, we've released one of our singles recently, Rush, which displays definitely more of the sung qualities of the record. And nobody said anything about it. Like, I always expect people like, is this him singing? Is that your actual, you know?
Yeah.
Which is great because it just means people have got on board with it and they're enjoying the song. That whatever I've contributed to make that song different vocally has made the music or the song better, and people are enjoying that. They're enjoying the fact that these songs are probably like a little bit more in kin of something that they enjoy that we've necessarily never delivered. So I've really enjoyed the fact that people are just kind of getting on board with it and not questioning it. I think that's the problem is when your singer does something new these days, it can be a bit of a full-blown like attack of like, well, I didn't like it. I liked it when he did this, and I liked him when he did that. You know,
especially in metal because of the way fans are sometimes.
Exactly, and people like what they like, but no one's challenged that, and no one's quizzed it. So I think that's a good thing. It just means that the songs are holding their weight, and what we've contributed to them, and they've done their purpose. And but saying that now, I'll probably get, you know, the album come out and I'll get a million criticisms. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, you know, the song Rush and working with Ellie Price, and I know she does some guest vocals on that track, and I think she's done some guest vocals on Nova as well. Is that right?
She has been working with us since Shadow by Vultures.
So quite a long time.
Yeah, so this is now her fourth record with us. So long story short, we did Shadow by Vultures at a studio called The Ranch, which is widely and heavily used by a lot of bands these days, with a great producer called Neil Kennedy. And we did a song called Before the Storm on that record, which was actually just an instrumental. And I remember when the guys had finished tracking it, not because they were like, he's rubbish, let's get someone that can sing. They were like, we always kind of heard this with a female voice on it, this particular track, and if it didn't have a female voice, it was going to stay as an instrumental. And then Neil was like, I know this singer called Ellie, she's in this band called Signals, like, I've just recorded them, she's got an incredible voice, I'll give her a shout, and she'll probably come down. And he did, and she just came down, and she met us. I was just like, what the hell have I got myself into? And she did Before the Storm, and then we just stayed friends. And we've done loads of things, like not just band-wise, but like we were incredibly close to her and her boyfriend Mike, who's one of the loveliest people in the world. And we did everything just made sense and it connected, and we've just kind of been family since. And what we've just done in the past is we fleshed most of the record out, or I would track it, and then we were bringing Ellie in and being like, could you maybe add this to this chorus, or add this, or thinking of doing this, and we're thinking of doing that. And then we got to this record and we were like, we wanted her to help write some of it, help guide on, be like, Ellie, we've done this is what we've got for the song, what do you hear? And then she's like, no, you need to take this out, or this would work better like this. We've never done that on a previous record, and it just made sense with Rush, because Rush was so different that we were like, we can afford to really make this very abstract and very different. And it didn't feel strange having Ellie and myself alongside each other. And that's, I think, the first time we've really kind of done that, where we are both kind of level and you are coherent in the song. And she just does fantastic work for the band. You know, I could sing her praises all day long. We've got a couple of deals in place which I need to uphold, where she wants to do some shows with us. So
okay, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so there might be in the future some shows, and if she probably does listen to this at some point, Ellie, it will happen. I have promised you. So yeah, and we're talking about doing some alternative versions of the songs with her early next year. So like stuff that with this record, we're looking at things that we've not done before and being like, let's try and do this, let's do that, it's not gonna really like change the wheel. It's just going to make the wheel maybe a bit different. So we're working closely together, and we're hopefully going to start like doing some of these like alternative versions at the first quarter of the year, and then future writings. I think Ellie enjoys doing them as much as we do. So, and once you get the bug, it's you want to keep scratching that itch if it's there. So yeah, that is the plan.
It sounds like she's like the secret member of the band then.
She is just as much of a member of Polar as any of us. But we just we have that separation of live and record. So the idea is to try and maybe blur those lines together a bit more, and maybe because I think it'd be interesting for people to come to a show and see a engineered set of stuff that maybe we don't do, because there's a bit more of a dominant factor of Ellie involved with it. So yeah, there's some plans for the future for sure.
What about the lyrics in this record? Like, what kind of concepts and ideas were you going for? What are you writing about on this record?
Well, it was very easy. We got back from that tour, and I think 2 years later, the UK and I think the world went into lockdown, and like every lyricist and singer in every band, the light bulb went on in my head. I'm like, we're going to write about a virus, and everyone was like, no way. It's like, well, and I think Gav had a good point with it, and he was like, if we do that, then the album's going to feel dated. It won't be able to carry through time, because it's going to be relevant to that particular period in time. And plus, everyone's getting this shoved down their throats like hourly. No one's going to want 10 songs on a record about this. They're going through it. They're living it just as much as you are. So what that did do, and I being back, going back to my childhood home, I started going. I've got my parents live behind some woodland, and I used to play up there when I was like in my early teens, and underage drink up there when I was in my later teens. And so I started going up there with an old friend of mine. I reconnected with an old friend, and we started taking his dog up for a walk up there, and it was really nostalgic, and it really made me think about the human connection, like what was happening to humanity all the time that this was going on. And we've always written about personal experiences. I think that's one of our strong assets as a band, and the way that people connect with us is that we try to be very explanational with what we're going through, and put those into songs, and then people do connect with it. But I think it was just the fact that so many personal friendships and situations were changing so much. No one had a control over it. We were in a period of time of being in forced change, and nobody really wanted to face up to it. And I think the record really was a way for us to not just face up to it, but just to be like, yeah, stuff's changing. People have changed. Whatever's happening in the past and the present may affect the future. People you love and adored, and you could spend till sunrise talking to, were just like strangers, or a conflict in opinion could cause a massive shockwave that was unrepairable. Or the fact that we it was a real strong time of reflection, and having to face up to some of the things that had happened to the band. And the song Everywhere Everything is kind of about people leaving the band. Really, it's about people who were in Polar finding that new avenue they wanted to follow or chase, and for them to go and realize that those situations were going to be altered forever, but still carrying in all of the memories and all the love that we'd created together. So yeah, it was really about a heavy human connection, and the change in human connection, and the change in personal circumstance. Like the song "Baptism of Fire," which is the last track on the record. The whole album, the whole band is a baptism of fire. It's a whole. We were learning everything as we were going along, and that song's really about kind of that. It's like rebuilding, restarting. And it was just, it was really, I think it was important that I could put those things into songs, those messages, those ideals, the things that I was living in, those human connections, because I can guarantee that everyone else is probably thinking that or going through it, or still is. And I think we're in a period now where the pandemic is starting to really die off, or the talk of it is. So everyone's now having to face up to what they're left with. What's everything changing? And I'm hoping that, my hope is that people will listen to the record and maybe hear the words and hear what I'm talking about and singing about, and it allows them to maybe like face up to some things or explore the idea that life has changed. And when you do look into it and you really have to focus on it, when you look at your changes and your changes in connections with people, some things just happen for a reason, and you just have to accept that is now a thing, and it's not bad, and you can drift apart from people, and that isn't a bad thing either. But it's sometimes a really hard thing to really like go through, to process. And I guess I feel lucky and honoured in a situation where I can put those into 3.5-minute songs that people then hopefully do relate to.
Yeah, because that's kind of like a constant, isn't it? Change, whether we like it or not, is a constant that will always happen in so many aspects of our lives.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, and that will continuously happen. But yeah, it was really, there's a song called Deliverance on the record. Maybe I started to face up to the idea that, I was living quite an unhealthy lifestyle where I was maybe drinking far too much. And you don't realize you're doing that. And I was being in a band, unfortunately, some of the downsides to that are the fact that your accessibility to drinking can be there night after night, and there's nothing to tell you no. And I wanted to change that. And I think the pandemic, that's one of the positive changes I looked into. But that song, I talk about like being like having self-destructive tendencies. And I think a lot of people that during the pandemic went through that, or still are, or are trying to recover from that. And I just like the idea that people might hear that, and that might spur them to change their ways a bit.
So why did you settle on Everywhere Everything for the name of the record? Why that title?
Because the album was about situations in time, and it was all about time. It was all about like these like moments and these things. So we were like, how do you write infinity or without knocking like the nail on the head, or right in time? And we didn't have a title for a long time, and then the song Everywhere Everything had been written and it was done, but we just kept gravitating back to Everywhere Everything because it felt like a good way of saying, encapsulating the idea of time and situation in words, like Everywhere and Everything. Like that just made us feel like it was just like those situations that we talk about in the song, they're constantly going around. So we use the infinity logo a lot with this record, that the idea that those moments in time or those situations you're feeling about, but they're constantly going around. They constantly play day in, day out. They never stop. And we just thought that Everywhere Everything really kind of encapsulated that feeling, or it helped give the imagery that we wanted to portray by having the title.
And I guess that goes back to what we were just saying, like change is constant, and that's kind of what the overall theme of the record is.
Yeah, exactly that.
So this is also your second album with A Rising Empire. What's it like working with them as a label?
Oh, incredible. They've just blown up. They've just, when we first started to where they are now, it's just phenomenal, really. Like they've got their finger on the pulse. They've got some incredible bands. They care. They're really, really hands-on with projects. And it makes you feel like you're in good company and you're being looked after when a label wants that much like interaction with what you're doing. They care about the process. They care about what the band's doing. They care about where the band's going. And they just go from strength to strength. And it's just, it feels like a good home for Polar. It felt like the right home for Polar. And yeah, like it's quite an honor to be on the roster with so many great bands that they've got, and bands that are flourishing and their careers are really taking off. And you know, like Landmarks, Our Hollow, Our Home. Yeah, they're really, really, really cool people. And that's nice. It's nice to be around really nice. It's a real humbling feeling to be like around such nice, honest, hardworking people
who also give a shit about your band as well. That's always
exactly it. Yeah. That's exactly that. Yeah, they care. And I don't think they have people on that label that don't care. They care about, maybe, I don't think that's a nasty thing, but they just feel like they are really working with the bands that they're like, we super care about this band. And we really believe in this project. And they get really, really behind that. Yeah.
So 2022, looking back in the past a little bit, it also marked the 10th anniversary of your debut album, Iron Lungs.
It did, yeah.
So, how do you kind of feel about that album when you look back at it now, a decade later?
I listened to it actually the other day with a mate, and my mate was like, "This song's a banger. This song's a banger," and I'm like, "Yeah, they're cool." It did everything it needed to do and more. It was honestly, we didn't know what we do now. We didn't know how to make a record. Really, we didn't know. Like we were living in a time where like Gallows had just blown up. And we were loving the fact that they were just so aggressive and they were just doing this really like mental, like punk rock, like hardcore, like super energetic sort of music. And we were like, we just want to do that. Like, and maybe like it feels like some of it's a bit immature, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just because of where we were and how young we were and what we were doing at that particular time. And I think we were just trying to make it really aggressive. We were just like, let's have a super aggressive record, but have some really cool choruses in the middle. I'm super proud of that record. And in fact, I don't think if that record hadn't existed, I don't think we'd be here now. So we owe a lot to it. We really do. And yeah, I still get people writing some messages about it to me. And I'm like, that's really cool. You still listen to it. Yeah, I and that did some, like we had Richie Beckett do the artwork and he's gone on to do some ridiculous things now. And it's like, yeah, it just it's a cool record. It just, if I listen, the problem I guess I have, and that's probably the same for everyone that's in a band, I listen to it and go, I'll change that. That song wouldn't be, I pick at it like a mill. I literally graze over the record and I'm like, at the end of it, I haven't really listened to it. I'm like, a list of notes of everything I would have done differently. So but yeah, I love it. It's one of our children, and it's just and it still gets regarded as a strong record. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with what that album has done in that particular period of time.
Yeah, well, it just shows how much you guys have grown and matured and changed if you're listening back to it and you just know there's these areas like, oh, this could have been better, or if we did this instead, it would have worked together in the song.
Yeah, I think that it's good. We've got these kind of platforms over the years of records that we can work off and we can refer back to. Because there are things in that record I'm like, we could do those again, like the rawness, because it was a raw record. It was a real raw. If where we are now and what we do with records, we do aim for a much more polished product. Back then it was like, this is raw. And I'd like that rawness to come out again at some point. In its if it had its moment or it needed and it was required, maybe we could revisit those particular parts in time. But yeah, it was that was like a bit of a blur really making that record, because it was just like all I ever wanted to do since I was like 15 was make an album, and I was making an album and I was just like, I was like a kid in a sweet shop who wanted to eat all the sweets, but realize if you just pick a couple of good ones, you're gonna enjoy them. So I was just gorging everything, and I just wanted to do everything. I wanted to be involved with everything, and like I guess I've become a better writer over the years, but at that time it was just like I just wanted to put every word I ever wrote into it. So sometimes it felt like maybe I over clustered out parts of it with too many words or too many lyrics. But I think that was just like excitement of being where we were. Like we had the opportunity to make a record and someone was going to pay for it. So
it's your debut album, and I guess at the time you didn't know if that was going to be your only album. That could have been
exactly that. Yeah, it could. Yeah, you never know. Like I guess every album's a bit like that at the moment. It's a bit like, is this going to be the last one? Then a year comes and it's like, right, we've got another 7 songs. Let's go and do another one. But yeah, just I'm very proud for what that album has done and continues to do.
Well, looking at the future, other than putting out this new album, what else is planned for Polar in 2023?
We just want to get back touring. We miss the road. I think we've always been a strong live act. That's where we really come alive, and we've had that taken away from us. And it's been, that's probably been one of the hardest pills to swallow. So we want to just hope that this record actually allows us to be the ability to be able to get back and do those things. Yeah. We've announced a couple of things already. We're going to do Fight Fest out in I think Brno in Czech Republic, which is just past Prague, and that's with like the Ghost Inside. So that's a big one. That's a big one for me. Like, I'm a big fan. So like seeing our name on a poster quite high up, I was like, well, yeah, my 16-year-old self is doing backflips over this. And I guess the big one, we're doing Resurrection Fest in Spain.
Oh yeah.
Which cool. Is pretty mega. Yeah, so I might have the ability of seeing like the formation of Pantera that is existing at the moment. But that's I think that will probably be one of the biggest things we've done as a band. And then just be out touring. Try and be as active as possible. We do fully understand, unfortunately, with the way the world is and the changes, not just the pandemic, but with Brexit, the cost of living, everything going up, that kind of stuff. It has an effect on touring. It has an effect on people going to shows. So I just always want to approach things with like a bit of realism and be like, of course, I want to go out and tour 365, but that might not be a possibility. But we just want to push ourselves to as far and as wide as we can and go as far as much and try and achieve as much as we can and just hope people really enjoy the record. I just want people to really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to being in that live environment where we start playing these songs and people connect with them live, because that's an undescribable feeling.
Well, I mean, as I said before, I've heard this album a few times. I definitely think it's your best album so far, so
thank you.
I'd be surprised if you didn't get quite a few things off the back of it, so I won't much about that.
It's at the moment, I think behind the scenes people are kind of listening to it and just digesting it and then working out the best thing what to do with it. So everything that is happening, it's just exciting because it's progress, and that's all we've just wanted for like years now, is just progress. So this is all the right steps in the right direction.
Best of luck, man. Thank you very much for taking the time. I really do appreciate it. Before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening, final words. Have you got any final words? Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say? The floor is yours.
I just want to say, obviously, please do check our record out, Everything, which comes out on the 13th of January. And I hope that people find something in that record that they can like keep to themselves and for a personal attribute. And I hope it really it makes people happy, sad, angry. And I look forward to seeing as many people as possible back out playing shows, and just hopefully we can all connect, and all the bad times are behind us, and we can hopefully hope for brighter days.
Fingers crossed, man. Yeah, I'll let you go, dude. Hopefully catch you next time you guys come through Manchester. I was going to come to that after the burial date, but obviously that didn't happen. So.
It didn't. No, I don't think it will ever happen again, unfortunately. But we will be back. And I just say thank you very much for supporting the band over the years. You've been absolutely amazing. So no, thank you. And thank you very much for your time this evening.
You're welcome, dude. Cheers again.
Catch you later. Take care. Bye.
And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider supporting the podcast in any way that you can. We have a Patreon where you can get access to each episode a week early, along with some other perks, a merch store, or you can leave a review wherever you're listening to this. You can also follow me on social media or subscribe to the newsletter, where I'll send out each episode to you via email, along with regular playlists. All this can be found at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.